Well, look, thanks very much for waiting around. I'm not sure that you did specifically for me, but as an optimist, I take the view that probably the people in the room now are the leaders that didn't bug out early, and so probably the best of the bunch. So anyway, now I've kissed up. Let's crack into it. My name's Howard Leedham. Okay, this is I'm not going to talk specifically about fighting fires or leading operations in fires, but what I'm going to do over the next 15 minutes is just give you some experience on leadership and explain why I'm going to give you that experience. And this is the only slide really that, you know, by 5 o'clock, just forget it. The rest of the slides, maybe there's something that's going to happen next week, next month, next year, 10 years' time, and you'll think, oh yeah, who is that bloke that kept us out of the balcony and was saying about leadership? And maybe you'll look back and think about it, and it'll help your leadership. So, the thing about firefighting, just as in the security sector, is that it permeates every level of our sector. It doesn't matter whether you're a firefighter or a chief executive. At some stage, you are expected to give leadership, and there's an expectation from the public for you to be a leader. In crisis response, you've just heard crisis response. You're going to have to at some stage make a decision about fight, flight, or freeze. What do you do? And we heard a bit about that earlier on as well in some presentations there. So I'm going to just run through what is leadership, why does it matter, and is the style important? And is your style important? And when you think of a good leadership role model, who do you think of? And I'd just like you to do that right now. Just think of somebody who in your life you thought, yeah, that guy's or woman is a good leader, and that's who I want to use as my sort of inspiration or example. And I'll come back to that a bit later. Okay. Wisdom is getting it right before the event. Experience is not quite getting it right, but learning from it and getting it right after the event. And all I would say is that, well, let's put it this way. I'm not long on wisdom. My background has nothing to do with firefighting. I was started off as a Navy diver, became a leading diver, and then got commissioned, became a commando pilot. I then went into the special forces. I'm the little pink guy in the middle there, and then after that went into became a chief pilot and a vice president of a corporate jet outfit, and then went on to be number 2 in a $4 billion hedge fund in the DIFC. So, like I say, not much wisdom, but that's the kind of experience and basis I'm talking on. The reason why I'm talking to you today, though, is not because of all that. The reason why I'm talking to you about this is because during COVID, I thought, you know what, it's probably about time I got educated. So I went and did a master's in strategic leadership. And the things that I'm about to impart on you now, I never knew. Or most of it, I never knew. I knew it from the gut, but I didn't know the reasons behind it. And so I really did the master's to find out why I got things wrong and why I got things right. And I'm going to impart that on you now. So what is leadership? Well, it's simply the ability to influence others to follow a direction or aim that they might not otherwise desire or take without your influence. And when I give this sort of brief in front of university students, I literally say that, what is leadership? And then I ask everybody to stand up, and then I ask them all to sit down. And I say, well, that's leadership, because I just made you do something that you wouldn't have otherwise done, and you know what? You didn't mind doing it either. So it's either willingly or unwillingly. Now, some of you will have seen this, the Adair leadership matrix, and it's a great matrix to use for any leadership model at all. You've got the task, you've got the team that you need to put together to do that task, and then you've got the needs of the individual. And when you look in Adair's, one of Adair's books, you know, you're going to just see that matrix. But what is important about this matrix is that is that you, as a leader, have to try and visualize in your mind, in any situation, doesn't matter whether it's business, whether it's crisis management, or whatever it is where those circles are. And just to give an example, okay, or two extreme examples, you might have a guy on your team whose wife is having a baby. Or you might be asking a team of guys to run into a burning building to try and rescue some people. Either way, what you're actually doing is you're moving the circle out. So you're saying, right, I've got to either separate that individual because he's got to go off and see his wife, or these guys are running in that building. I don't know whether all of them are going to run back out again. But I've got to put the needs of the individual to one side so that I get the task done. And I know I've got the right team to do it. Now, the important thing about these circles then is that you put them, or you position them where you want them as a leader. Because if you've got a disruptive individual, and we've all had them, is that what they do is they will try and pull that circle out themselves. And when they try and pull that circles out themselves, then the team starts crumbling, gets disruptive, you get a bit of a sort of a mutiny problem, and then the task starts falling to bits, and then it all goes pear-shaped. So that is why you've got to make sure that if somebody pulls that circle out, you then pull it back in, either by, in this case, just grabbing the individual by the scruff of the neck, or getting rid of him. So that's Adair's leadership matrix. Now, the styles. If you're a leader in your organization, the only reason that you're a leader in your organization is because whoever interviewed you or whoever promoted you thought your ability is going to improve the bottom line. That's it. Because if you don't, why are you there? So when I was doing the studies into this, I interviewed directors from 69 different companies and went through leadership styles to see what leadership styles were most effective in running companies. And 80% of the directors, they knew their style, but they couldn't classify it. And it wasn't until they were explained the different styles that they said, oh, hang on, sorry, wrong way. There we go. That they said, oh, well, that's me. That's my style. And then from then on, they also had 100% of them had opinion on what was most effective, the most effective style in business. All of you are one of these. If you're a leader, you're one of these. You're transactional, transformational, situational, laissez-faire, or autocratic. Now, the majority of you will be transactional or transformational, all right? Now, transactional. Transactional leader is pretty much what it says on the tin. You're going to say, right, I pay you to do a job, you go and do that job, you do it well, I'll pay you more, or I'll promote you. If you don't do it well, you're fired. The maintenance of the mission for a transactional leader is where he's at. He's got a job to do, he's got a team to do it, and he's going to drive forward and get it done. Now, in business terms, what the transactional leader does for the stakeholder, both below and above, is he actually mitigates risk because he doesn't step out. He doesn't step out of the parallel lines that he wants to in achievement. Whereas the transformational leader, he influences others beyond their immediate self-interest. So what he does, I won't read it out verbatim, but what he does is he basically says, look, let's do this for the good of the company. I want you to put the company or the organization before your own interests. And let's get this done, and let's see what else we can achieve outside of what we're doing right now. And in a business environment, the transformational leader represents business risk because he's going to step out of the main course of the business to say, oh, let's be creative, let's do something else. Now, I wouldn't mind betting, though, academics love transformational leaders, by the way. I wouldn't mind betting, though, when you thought of the guy that had most inspired you or the woman that most inspired you earlier on, is that it was a transformational style of leadership because it's inspirational. It's pleasant. Now, The rarer person is the situational leader. And if you're a situational leader, you're quite a find, because what you can do is you can flick between the two. And out of all the guys that I interviewed, out of the directors, there was only about 10% of them that thought they had come across good situational leaders. The two disasters are these: the laissez-faire. You've all met them. They sit on a board or they sit in a team and they say, just pay me my $40 and just get on with it, and they don't care. And then the autocratic is the person that never takes any feedback from anybody. He's like his way or the highway. He's not interested in you. He's not interested in anything else. It's just what he thinks, and that's it. And although it might work for a while, it is a recipe for disaster in terms of keeping people on board the team and keeping that team cohesive and meeting the teams of the individual. So it's eventually going to break things down. So with style comes risk. And what I discovered was that actually we talk about diversity, and we talk about diversity in terms of culture, we talk about diversity in terms of gender, and in terms of age. But actually, when the rubber hits the road, when you have a team or you have a board of directors or whatever it is in business, the diversity that is important is having transactional and transformational leadership on your team, because one counterbalances the other. One is creative and wants to step outside the box. The other one wants to keep you in line. And so roles are style dependent. And so if you've got a CEO that is a transformational type CEO, he's going to need a transactional CFO and maybe a transactional CIO. And that way, it'll all balance out. These are, and again, I'm not going to run through the list. You can read on the left-hand side here the list if I get out of the way. And but one of the things that isn't there, that Adair didn't include in there, that should be included in all of these, is consistency. The one thing that you need to be as a leader is consistent. Self-awareness is key. I've now given you the tools to go look at yourself in the mirror, whenever you do tomorrow, wherever, and say, yeah, you know what, I think I'm a transactional leader, or I think I'm a transformation leader, or maybe I'm a situational leader. If you're the other two, you need to change. So these things that I always say to myself about the self-awareness. If you think you're the smartest man in the room, you're invariably not. You're probably autocratic. Arrogance endears itself to no one, and we heard that in the crisis management discussion earlier on. There's no I in team, so those three circles really matter. And I always think of Lawrence adaptability. You saw that photograph of me earlier on. That was on the Pakistan border. Lawrence adaptability is taken from T. Lawrence of Arabia, where what he said, whenever I talk to a prince or a pauper, I sit down on the same level with them and talk to them in their tone. So something that they understand. So I never sound superior, and I never sound inferior. I talk to them straight on. And the other one was one by Hemingway, where he said, you can judge the measure of a man or a woman by the way they treat a waiter. And that is, I think, holds good for the way a leader treats his team and the individuals within that team. One little tip for you, actually: never be rude to a waiter before you get your food. Okay, so why do leaders fail? This is why they fail. Again, I'm not going to run through it. The list there, but what I would say is at the bottom, I talked about being an optimist, about you being, the leaders that I wanted to talk to most of the day, and you'll see the plan, and then you'll see the reality. And to be a good leader, I think you have to be an optimist, because when you set out on something, it's never ever going to be as easy as you thought it was. And if you knew how difficult it was going to be, you'd probably never do it. In summary, These are the core elements. Again, I'm not going to go through all of them, but what I would say is as a leader, it's up to you to get the right people, the right diversity in terms of style, the competencies and members. If you get that right, then everything else is probably going to fall into place for you. And finally, the 5 helpful hints to leader: be afraid of failure. You're going to fail. If you've been in leadership long enough, you're going to fail. I've failed for sure, and you pick yourself up and get on with it again. Dust yourself off, get on with it. Make a decision. As guys in the firefighting industry, you all know this. You've got to make a decision. It might not be the right one. You can always change it. But the worst thing is not to make one at all. Know your style. Be self-aware. Of course, you're in the firefighting industry, so you're going to stay as fit as life will let you in any case. And you know that if you can stay fit, not only does it help you respect yourself, but it helps other people around you. And then the old maxim, lead, follow, or get out of the way. And the reason I put that in there is because sometimes, if you're a leader and you're not in charge, it's up to you to help the guy that is in charge to lead effectively. It's just as much a function of leadership to help to do that. So anyway, I think I went a tiny little bit over over time there, but hopefully the pearls of wisdom that I've just passed on will come in handy for you. And like I say, you'll forget this slide, but some of the other stuff you'll remember. Thanks very much.